Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So, welcome to the Bhagavad Gita discussion on the Sarartha Varshani Tika of Vishwanath Chakra Thakur and the sub commentary by Bhaktivinoda Thakur called as the Rasika Ranjan. So, we have been discussing the sixth chapter, and we saw the first part in yesterday and day before's class. How a Nishkama Karma Yogi, uh, how a Ashtanga Yogi is in the beginning stages also practicing Nishkam Karma Yoga. He should not give up Nishkam Karma Yoga, you know. So that's what he stresses. And then Aru Ruksho Muni Roga, Karma Karanam Uchate. Yoga Rodasya Taseva Shamakaranam. In the beginning stages of the Ashtanga Yoga, there is also karma, which is the means of elevation in Ashtanga Yoga. But in the higher stages, Yoga Ruda, you know, the cessation of all actions is the means. So when one can reach the Yoga Ruda is when one is free from all this, you know. Yada te nendriyarteshu na karmasvanu sajjate sarva sankalpa sannyasi yoga rudas taduchyate. And because the mind is the central, uh, because the mind has to be completely, conquered or, controlled. So two verses on the mind speak, and then the characteristics of one who is on the, or one who has controlled the mind, and one who is qualified to practice meditation, yoga ruda. जितात्मना प्रशांतस्य परमात्मा समाहित शीतोष्ण सुख देकेशु तथा मान पमानयो ज्ञान विज्ञान तृप्तात्मा कूटस्थो विजितेंद्रिय. And how, there is sama buddhi to all people. Here it is to things. Sama loshta ashmakanjana, it is to people. And then the next section is practically the major section of the process of practice of Ashtanga Yoga, which Krishna is describing. And we saw from verses 10 to 15 yesterday how, a yogi, Yunjita, yesterday we mentioned, that he is situated in samadhi, because meditation means we have to be situated in samadhi, absorbed in trance, satatam, always, constantly, atmanam rahasi sthita, he is in the solitary place, ekaki, with controlled yatachitindriya, nirashira, and aparigra. And then his sitting place for meditation and how his bodily posture is, and the principles of Prashantatma, Vigativi, Brahmachari Vrata, and then mind is controlled. Mat Chitta and Mat Para. So I mentioned yesterday it is devotional Ashtanga Yoga. And then like this, Mat Samsthanam Adhigachati. He absorbed in meditation, because he's devoid of the sense objects, the yogi becomes free from samsara and he attains liberation with the realization of impersonal Brahman. So, Mat Samsthanam Adhigachati is the impersonal Brahman realization of the Nirvishesh Brahma. So, this is what the first section realization. Now, realization of Paramatma will be in the next series of verses. So, let's go to this series now, 16 to 23, realization of Paramatma. So, let's go into this now, this series of verses. नात्यश्नतस्तो योगोऽस्ति न चैकान्तम् अनश्नत न चाति स्वप्नशीलस्य जाग्रतो नैव चार्जुन. Now, interestingly, these two verses, Bhagavad Gita 6.16 and 6.17, we regularly quote, but it is coming in a section after one is Brahman realized. And further realization of the Paramatma, Krishna is speaking about mental regulation. So, For further elevation, he has to regulate himself. Without a balanced life of mental regulation, one cannot make progress. So Krishna is speaking about that as a criteria to make further progress to, you know, realize, have Paramatma realization. Yoga is not possible for one who eats too much. Na ati ashnasa. Anash, ashnatas. Ashnatas means to eat. Tu astu yogosti asti. Or one who does not eat. Na cha ekantam anashnashata. Yeah. Ashnata means to eat. Ana means, it is cancelling. So it is not eating. So if you eat too much or you eat too little, then you cannot practice yoga. Or for one who sleeps too much, na cha ati swapna shilasya, or does not sleep. O Arjuna, jagrato naiva cha Arjuna. Uh, Arjuna. Two verses describe the rules for making practice of yoga study. So, these verses are speaking about how the, you know, yoga practice can be studied, and a lot can be spoken. These two verses, sometimes seminars are held on this, the art of balancing, all that. But I'll just restrict to what Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Bhaktivinoda Thakur have to say. One who eats too much is not a yogi, but is a bhogi. It is said, Purnayet Ashnenardham Tritiyamudakena tu Vayu Sancharyartam tu Chaturtam Avashash Avasheshayet Shayet. One should fill the stomach half with food. Purnayet Ashnena Ardham. It's 50%. So I don't know how to draw the stomach, but roughly, So 50% should be food and one quarter with water. So 50% is remaining, so 25% water. And then one quarter for the movement of air. So 25% should be for air. Now, especially we Hare Krishna people, I'm not criticizing anyone or, just to make the point. Especially when it is festival, we eat up till our neck. You know? And devotees also serve the way, you have to serve as it is required by the person whom you're serving and not force. So the water actually, you know, you will feel the need of it after. Generally, they say that you should take very little quantity of water if you really feel thirsty while eating. Maybe, one quarter of a glass, not more than that. And if you have liquids like sambar, rasam, then that is taken care. So generally after 1 hour, a bell comes and then the need to drink water is there. Now, practically I had 3:30 my meal and I'm feeling thirsty, in fact. So one should, because the digestion continues, once you know, finish the eating process and the air is required for mixing. So our digestive system works like typically like a stone grinder. Yeah, traditionally, the stone grinder, the hand stone grinder. Our stomach is like the vertical stone grinder. It is like that. And, in stone grinding, especially, traditionally people who make chutney, coconut chutney, they put the ingredient, which is like the food, and they pour a little water and then they start, there should be air gap for the movement, of the grinder. Otherwise, the grinder will not move without the air gap. So, like that, all these three are required for proper digestion. If there is no air, no water, then the digestion will not be proper, assimilation will not happen. So, this is a great science, and devotees should understand it, how our digestion works. Okay, now next verse. Yuktahara viharasya युक्तचेष्टस्य कर्मसु युक्तस्वप्नावबोधस्य योगो भवति दुःखः. One who has regulated eating. I mentioned now. Here, this is more to do with the mental regulation, for higher advancement. Eating, regulated walking or recreation. Yuktahara viharasya. Regulated use of organs in both material and spiritual activities. Yukta chestasya karmasu. Like if you're too much doing, you know, okay, this is very interesting how Vishwanath Chakatakur has translated both material and spiritual activities he has included in Yukta chestasya karmasu. So if you do too many material activities, like, your work, your job, you're instead of 8-10 hours, you end up working 13 hours, 14 hours. And then, when your spiritual, chanting or duties comes now, you become lax there, it's difficult. Or, you would do a lot of seva, book distribution and all that, and nearly exhaust yourself. Then the core activities of chanting and hearing, there also you become lax. So balance has to be there. Regulated sleep and regulated waking. Yukta Swapna. So that means sleeping on time and getting up on time. His yoga destroys all suffering. Now, because I'm not able to do this, especially the sleep part, you know, although I've been working a lot on this and walking and recreation, yes, I'm really working on it. But sleep is unregulated because of many years of, service, because of, I can say, a lot of ayukta chestasya karmasu in one sense. All and that to all spiritual duties, in one sense, So only then you can destroy all suffering, So that's why it is very, very important that we regulate. Yukta means controlled. So yukta means also regulated and controlled eating, controlled. So the yogis, this is in the Ashtanga Yoga. So the principle applies to also Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Ashtanga. So the yogi, meditation is, dharana, dhyana, samadhi. Of course, how long he can be in samadhi? Not more than 24 minutes, So he might early morning go into samadhi and the daytime he might go into nature walk, you know, where he carries the wood for his cooking. So he has to be in the nature, otherwise, he'll go crazy. Because the mind is such a thing. So the regulation of the mind for deeper spiritual experiences is required. So, even for devotees, nature walk, it's Krishna's nature. And don't combine your nature walk with your japa, and have distracted japa. When you're doing walk, you can use your headphones and hear and focusedly work on, your breathing, your walking and all that. So it's very important, viharasya. Vihar is very important. Ahar, vihar, and yukta chestasya and yukta swapna. All four, Only when the all four are balanced, then yoga bhavati dukkha. Yukta means controlled. One who controls eating and walking, ahar, vihar, and controls actions such as speak, chestasya during execution of both material and spiritual duties. So here he mentions control of speech, performs yoga without which destroys suffering. Yeah. Now, what happens when you develop this kind of mental regulation? There is further advancement. Yada viniyatam chittam atmanevavatishtate nispruha sarva kamebhya yukta ityuchyate tada. So here it has come. Pada 4. This is the definition of yoga. Yukta iti uchyate. He's said to be connected. You know, he's said to be perfect in yoga. Yukta, connected in iti, you said. How? Yada, when. Viniyatam chittam. So niyatam means to, regulate, you know. Vishesh rupena niyatam. So niyatam means to control. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his word-to-word translation says Vinita means, where is my, okay, here it is. It's fully controlled. Vishesh Rupena Nitam. Chittam. Consciousness. So I'll come to this concept of Chittam. We'll try to understand this. We have been speaking about it. Fixes itself in the self alone. Atmaneva eva vatishtate. Avatishtate. Eva avatishtate. Avatishta means situated. The consciousness is fixed in the self. You know, Adhyatma, Adi Atma, it is said, free from the desires of all objects of enjoyment. Nispruha sarva kamebhya. Nispruha means free from the desire of all sense objects, sense enjoyment. Kamebhya, it is Bahuvachan here, plural, because there are five sense and then the related sense objects. One is said to be perfect in yoga. So here, the state of focus in 6.19 is what? Chitta. Chitta is like the flame, and material desire like wind. And steady focus of the chitta on Atma is like the steady flame. So the example will be given here. Okay, it's given in the next verse. For chitta, I had to differentiate. So what is the difference between chitta and chitta? Chit, C-I-T, and versus chitta. Chit is the innate feature of the soul as a Sachidanand entity, pure original consciousness. So this is chitta. And chitta is the contaminated consciousness expressed through the material realm. So this is the soul, and Sat, Chit, and Anand. So chitta here is the pure consciousness, like the white light. The white light, So the soul's consciousness which flows only towards Krishna. Now there is a subtle body and there are unlimited vasanas or desires. It's now like the white light which is passing through this and then through the gross body. And you have different, based on your consciousness and the influence of the modes, you see the world. The world is perceived based on the consciousness, Now here the consciousness refers to the contaminated consciousness, which is called as chitta. So this is what I wanted to mention here. Difference. So this will come up in the next slide. So somehow, okay. Okay, so let's see what Vishnu Chakra. When does the yogi perfect that yoga? This verse describes that situation. When the consciousness stops all movement. Vinitam chittam. So there is no movement. There are sense objects, and the senses don't push the pranas to go towards the sense objects, thereby the mind, nor the intelligence, because they're all, there is, yata chittendriya kriya, there is complete control of the mind and the senses, and is firmly fixed without distraction in the self alone. Atmani avatishtate. It is said to be in perfect yoga. This is when he attains. So the mental regulation of those two verses is so important for further advancement. And now he gives the example. Yata dipo nivatasta nengate sopama smrita yogino yata chittasya yunjato yogamatmanah. The motionless consciousness of a yogi. Yogino yata chittasya. Engaged in meditation on the self. Yunjata yogam atmanah is considered exactly similar to a flame. Yata dhipa sa upama smrita, which does not move. Na ingate, being placed in a windless place. So, vata means, here wind or air also, no? And nivata means windless. Sta means, it is placed or situated. So when the motionless consciousness of a yogi, chittasya, is only meditating on the self, then it is considered like just like a flame which doesn't, waver, it doesn't waver when it's kept in a windless place. Now, I'm just asking you a question. Now, suppose you have uh, let's draw. I know I'm very poor in drawing again. Uh, this is oh, very bad. 1 second. Let me visualize. Okay. Yeah, this is better. So, yes. So this is a lamp and this is a flame. Flame. Okay. Now tell me, even if, you were supposed to keep this lamp in a place, in a closed room, uh, even there is a slight movement, what will happen? Who will answer? What will happen? Even if you keep in a closed room where there is no window, nothing, but still, uh, even if you move, your hand moves, what happens to the flame? Who will answer? Navneet Kalra Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
Danvat Pranam. The flame would flicker.
It will waver. So, what is the best thing to do that at you see that the flame will not even na ingate, does not move or waver? What is the best thing to do?
To as much as possible, keep it where there is no movement.
No, that will also not work. There is a hint given in the verse, the previous verse. What is the best thing to do to see that this flame doesn't at all waver? Because to get a windless place is not so easy.
Yeah.
So, what do you do best then? What do you do for this? How do you see that? All, it's a very simple thing. Everyone should know what to do. Whatever. What do we do?
I don't know, Prabhuji.
Okay, Vedika Mataji, what you will do if you have lamp in your temple altar and you don't want the flame to, move. So what will you do?
We try to protect Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
You
We'll
all the
try to
time you'll all the time
protect.
stand in front of the lamp and try to protect it 24 hours.
Uh, Maybe a steady mind.
No, no, no. Please don't go into. I'm just asking a very simple question. You have a lamp and there is a
Yeah,
flame in it, and you don't want the flame to waver, and you kept it in front of your altar. What will you do to see that the flame doesn't waver? What will you do?
we can cover it with something that is.
What do you cover with it? You got the answer. You
Yeah.
cover it with a glass lid, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So similarly, nispruha sarva kamebhya. Sarva kam.
Means no desires. We should have no
Ah,
desires.
sarva kama. You know? So that means all the senses are completely locked. So that's like how, the mind, that is the analogy. So the chitta is the flame. The chitta is compared to the flame. And material desires are like the wind. So the study focus of chitta on atma is like the study flame. So that's what is the analogy given. Okay. Let's go into the purport now, Vishnu Chakatakur. It is considered exactly yatha, similar upama to a lamp which does not move, na ingate, when in a windless place. Nivata sta. Nivata sta. Vata means, again I mentioned here, nivata means windless. Sta means which is situated. The elision of Sir with Upama to form Sopama is according to the role. So, Chi, Lope, Chet, Pada, Purnanam. This is how the Sandhi is done based on the Panini Sutra. So, you need not worry about it. Here, exclusion, or what is being mentioned here, elision means basically it means that, there is a deliberate omission. So and U, it has become so, somapama it has become, Sa and U have become somapa. So this is based on Sanskrit, so don't worry about it. The normal form would be Sa Upama. Sa Upama it should be, but according to the rule, it can be Sopama for metrical reasons. This is from the Panini. What is the comparison? That lamp is compared to the consciousness of yogi devoid of movement. The consciousness of the yogi is devoid of any movement. Okay, now this is a very interesting verse. Now, before we go into this section, any questions you have up till now? Any questions, any clarifications? Yes, Navneet Kalramataji.
So in for the yogi, there is no difference between his chitta and chitta.
There is difference. Chit is the part of the soul, soul's consciousness, but chitta is the soul's pure consciousness passing through the subtle body, mind, intelligence. But because the mind and intelligence have become purified, you know, there is, when the mind and intelligence are contaminated, it's like, the modes influence are there, like, red means passion, you can say, yellow means goodness, and blue means ignorance. So different shades and different colors with these three you can make, right? So the light which comes out is not pure light outside, but it is the light which is of different colors based on the combination of modes. But because of the purification of pratyahar and all this, what has happened, even the Nishkama Karma Yoga by which he has purified his Antakaran, so his now subtle body is purified. So the chitta now is purified, and that's why the pure white light of the soul's consciousness is there. And that's why, in one sense, there is no difference in one sense. Is it clear?
He is he in his true ego self position?
Yes, as the soul, he realizes himself as the soul because with that purified mind, the mind is also like an eye. Actually, we don't see with our eyes, we see with our mind's eyes, for your kind information. It's the consciousness. Like, for a Brahmana, the cow is worshipable, but for the tiger, it is food, you know. And for a
Yeah.
person who's driving the car, it's just an obstacle. So all see the same object, but from different perceptions they are seeing because of the state of their consciousness. So the world is a reflection of the consciousness of the individual in one sense. So the with the purified mind, he sees himself as Atma, and that is what is being discussed in the next verses coming. And there is realization of Paramatma also because he is already situated in the self. You know, Atmaneva Tishtate, it is mentioned. His
Yeah.
consciousness is just fixed in the self. So now the meditation on the super self will come up here. Paramatma, which will be discussed in this coming verses. Is it okay?
Thank you, Babuji.
Okay. Okay. So let's take now 6:20 to 23. Yatro paramate chittam niruddham yoga sevaya yatra chaivatmanatmanam bhashanatmani tushtati sukam matyantikam yattat buddhigrayam matendriyam vetti yatra na chaivayam स्थितश्चलति तत्त्वता यं लब्ध्वा चापरं लाभं मन्यते नादिकं ततः यस्मिन् स्थितो न दुःखेन गुरुणापि विचालयेत् तं विद्या दुःखसंयोग वियोगं योगसंवितं स निश्चयेन योक्तव्य योगो निर्विण्णचेतसा. 1, 2, 3. Okay, there are no, I think by mistake, 4 verses have come together here. 1 minute. Let me see Prabhupada's commentary because Prabhupada has also only placed 3 verses. Gurunapi Vichalete. And he has taken half of this verse. Yeah. So many acharyas, the way they put it, Tam Vidya Dukha Sayam Vyoga Yoga Samvitam. Till here they have taken. So 3.5 verses are taken sometimes. So Sir Nishchay goes to the next verse also. Doesn't matter. Okay. Wherein the consciousness completely controlled. Yatra uparamate chittam. Ramate means, to take, the mind takes pleasure in sense objects. Uparamate means it has gone higher now. It is transcended. Becomes inactive by the practice of yoga. Niruddham yoga sevaya. So here the word term niruddham has come. This term I will explain, this concept of what is niruddham. Yoga, by yoga sevaya, by ashtanga yoga. Wherein seeing the Paramatma with the aid of the Paramatma. Yatra cha eva atmana atmanam pashan. Now, actually, seeing the Paramatma with the aid of Paramatma, it is mentioned because ultimately the Paramatma has to reveal himself to us. Otherwise, we cannot see. The yogi is satisfied in the self. Atmani tushyati. So the yogi, he himself becomes satisfied seeing the Paramatma, wherein he knows extreme bliss through spiritual intelligence. Vetti atyantikam sukham yat tad buddhi graham. So now buddhi graham is his, transcendental senses, but not through the material senses, atendriyam, and wherein he does not move from the true spiritual nature. Yatra sthita ayam na cha eva tatvata chalati, wherein he considers Manyate, having obtained this, yam labam labdva, nothing more can be attained thereafter. Aparam na adhikam tata, and being so situated, yasmin sita is not disturbed by the greatest calamity. Na gurunapi dukhena vichalayet. No such a state separated from all misery. Tam vidya dukkha samyoga viyogam. Now, this is also a very interesting term, viyogam. Actually, we are in yoga always. The jiva is in yoga with, prakriti. The senses are always in contact with prakriti, prakriti, sense objects, So, tam vidya dukkha samyoga viyogam. First, here in the Ashtanga process, there is the delinking and then linking with the Paramatma. This is samyoga and this is viyoga. To be yoga, yoga sammitam. This yoga must be practiced with determination. Sa yoga nishchena yoktavya, devoid of depression. Anirvinna chetasa. So this is, you can say, this is half verse, 3.5. This is sometimes taken part of 24 verse also sometimes. Okay, there are 5 states of the mind. In the Yoga Sutras, the mind is compared to a clear lake. Now you can see this is a clear lake and you can see below in the lake even the stones very clearly because it's a clean lake. So when this lake is covered with lot of, dry leaves, it's completely covered. You can't see anything inside. So that is like mood, deluded as in sleep, laziness or dullness. So this is because of tamaguna. It's, but when the lake has lot of ripples, although the lake is very clean, there are no leaves and all dirty things on the top. Although it is clean, but there are not a lot of ripples, still you cannot see in the bottom. So that is shipta, agitated as in stress or mania. Vikshipta is distracted as in lecture in a noisy. So these are mostly related to the mode of passion. There is hyperactivity, you say, na, sometimes. So like that, Shipta and Vikshipta are there. Then Ekagrata, concentrated as a serious student, revising an hour before exam. This is the mode of goodness. But Nirodha means controlled as in a devotee absorbed in samadhi or trance of love of God. So this Nirodha stage is the transcendental stage where the lake is completely still. You know, here 2 verses before it was spoken about motionless consciousness, which is situated in the self. So there are no ripples, the lake water is completely still, and now this lake itself is compared to the mind. And you who are standing here with your eyes, you can see in the bottom. Similarly, the mind acts like an eye by which you can see the self. Of course, the super self reveals himself and the Atma also in one sense. So that is called as Nirodha, which is the transcendental platform. Ekagra is mode of goodness. These two are mode of passion. This is mode of ignorance. Okay, Vishwanath Chakra Thakur and Bhaktivinoda Thakur have given a lengthy commentary on this, and we have to understand it very carefully. And it is a quite technical commentary. So please stay tuned and try to hear this attentively and try to understand it. Okay. In verse 16 and verses following, the word yoga referred to being situated in samadhi. Verse 16, where it started with, mental regulation. Nashasu yogosti, it's, to be in absorption, you have to be highly regulated. That's what. Samadhi is of top types, sampragyata and asampragyata. Sampragyata samadhi has many types according to the differences of savichar and savitarka. Now, what this is, we'll try to understand. Note, these are described in Patanjali Yoga Sutra. Sampragyata samadhi involves meditation on objects. So this is what? This is meditation on objects. There are objects. And if the objects are gross, it is called savitarka. You know, if the objects are subtle, then it is called as savichara. So in Sampregatma, there is meditation of the objects. There is, savitarka and savichara. Now, if your meditation is on certain thought, you're absorbed in certain thought. This is object also thought, but it is quite subtle. You know. Now your meditation is on the deity. Deity is a form, it's an object. It's a gross object in one sense. So that is something compared to Savitarka and Savichara. You know. Asampragyata samadhi is meditation on no object at all. So there is no object at all here. This is in the Ashtanga Yoga. Now we are also as devotees, we also, our meditation is there. Samadhi is also one, absorption is there. So whether we follow the Sampregata Samadhi or Asampregata Samadhi, who will answer? Navneet Kalra Mataji, yes.
Sampragatna.
And in that, we can use
Form,
both.
the form and qualities is the savichar.
No, yeah, no, if you are meditating directly, yeah, on the qualities and all, like, these are
Yeah.
thoughts, basically thoughts. Yeah, correct. Yeah. So, but here it is a Sampragatma, you have to understand. What is a Sampragyata Samadhi like? 3.5 verses answer. I mentioned, no, 3.5 verses. So this Ashtanga Yoga is a Sampragyata. In that state of a Sampragyata Samadhi, the consciousness does not touch any objects at all. Chitta uparamate. Because of complete stoppage, niruddham, there is, so we directly, ours is an open-eyed meditation where we meditate on the deity form, seeing the beautiful limbs of the Lord, beautiful dress of the Lord, beautiful face of the Lord, smile of the Lord. Uh, but there are no objects here because there is Niruddha. As Patanjali Yoga says, Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Yoga means stopping the functions of the consciousness. Chitta here refers to, again, now I mentioned the contaminated consciousness, Nirodha. Chitta Vritti. The vrittis means the movements, because in the chit there are the vrittis. The word yatra, in which state, extends the meaning to the verse 23. In that samadhi, the yogi seeing the Paramatma, Atmanam, by his internal organ, Atmanam, which takes the form of Paramatma, is satisfied. And so ultimately, the Lord, who is seated in the Paramatma, seeing the sincerity, he, manifest himself, and the yogi from his internal organ, in the purified mind, he sees the Paramatma. Note, there seems to be two versions here. One version, Atmana, means Paramatmanam. So like that, Atmana can be taken as Paramatmanam, like that. Thus, by the internal organ, which takes the form of Paramatma, the yogi sees Paramatma. You know. In the other version, the yogi sees the Atma by the internal organ in the form of Paramatma. Okay, so like that, these are very technical. We need not worry much about it. Since the functions of the mind, etc., have stopped, the Atma is not realized. The Paramatma must function at this time to give him awareness of his own self and Paramatma. As I mentioned, so the functions of the mind have stopped, and the Lord gives him awareness of both himself and the self. In the Bhagavatam, it is mentioned, भिद्यन्ते हृदय ग्रंथिस छिन्द्यन्ते सर्व संशया शीयन्ते चास्य कर्माणि दृष्ट एवात्मनीश्वरे दृष्ट एव atma. So he can, with a purified mind, see himself and the Ishwar, the Lord, Paramatma. So the self and the Paramatma both are revealed. In that state of samadhi, he then experiences extreme bliss, which is comprehended by intelligence in the form of the soul, buddhya, devoid of contact with material senses and sense objects. So this is the spiritual intelligence. This is the soul's intelligence. Please remember, the soul has its own mind, soul has its own intelligence. So the soul's intelligence is awakened. It's not the material faculty of intelligence. Since he has realized the soul, it functions on its own intelligence, not material intelligence, which has stopped. Material intelligence has stopped. Uparamate has happened. Then, in that state, he does not move from the true state of the Atma, his true form, Tattvata. He is situated in the self. Having attained that state, he does not consider attaining anything else. Yam labdva chaparam labham na manyate adhikam tata. In that state, he is separated from all contact with suffering. One should know this state of samadhi as yoga. So this is yoga. Though I cannot attain it quickly, certainly I will attain this yoga. So now directly Krishna is speaking about the goal. And now the practice, you might practice, and the practices will come up in the next few verses. First, the goal is given, and the practice now, is going to mention. But he should be a nirvinna chetasa. He should be steady in his practice, although he might not attain it quickly. By such certainty, a nirvinna chetasa, one should practice. One should not be discouraged, saying, after such a long time, I have not achieved perfection. What is the use of all this hard work? After 20 years of chanting Hare Krishna, I am still distracted by material thoughts, and the mind is not steady till one has to sincerely also practice the process. The process has to be applied also properly. One should practice with mind convinced. What is it for me? Let me attain perfection in this life or in the next. Gaudapad has given an example. One should gradually control the mind without complaining, though it is like taking drops of water from the ocean to dry it up with the tip of a kusha. उत्शेक उद्धरे यद्वत् कुशाग्रकेक बिंदुना मनसो निग्रहस्तद्वत् भवेत् अपरिखेदत अपरिखेदत without any complaint. Mana nigrah, one should gradually control. Tadvat, how? Like taking drops of water from the ocean to dry it up with the tip of a kusha grass. Kusha agreke eka binduna, one drop you are taking. This is what kind of endeavor is required. There is a story to explain this. The ocean stole with its strong waves the eggs of a bird which were being situated on the ocean shore. Determined to dry up the ocean, the bird took one drop of water at a time using its beak. The ocean, being emptied of many drops by the bird's beak, was not at all affected. Though discouraged by Narada, who happened to come there, the bird again made the promise in front of him. Narad came and discouraged him. But Narad acts for the benefit of all Jiva. He wanted to see his determination. Now he promised that, I am promising in front of you that I will be determined in my efforts. So seeing Dhruva's determination also, Narad was amazed, and that's why Narad blessed him and gave him the Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya mantra. And then within 6 months, he attained perfection. So this bird made a promise in front of Narada. In this life or the next, I will dry up the ocean. That was a promise he made. Then merciful Narad, by the will of the Lord, because Narad showed mercy in his heart, the Lord made arrangement. Send Garuda to help the bird, saying, the ocean has disrespected you by offending your relative, this small bird. See, Narada, to agitate Garuda, he said, ocean has disrespected your relative because you are also a bird and this small bird is there. The ocean, becoming dried up by the wind coming from Garuda's flapping wings, became frightened and then returned the eggs to the bird. Thus, one should be convinced that the Lord will bestow his mercy on the resolute person who enthusiastically begins yoga, jnana, or bhakti with faith in the words of scripture. So, first thing is, we need drid shraddha. Second is utsah, not utsamai, utsah nishtay dhairyat. NOI. Okay, I mentioned samadhi is sampregatma samadhi, savitarka on object, on thought. Sampragata is nirodha, mind which is completely stopped. There is no object of meditation. Okay, let's see Bhaktivinoda Thakur and then I will stop for questions. In this way, by the practice of yoga, the mind gradually becomes detached from sense enjoyment and free from being controlled by mundane objects. At that time, the stage of samadhi manifests. Yatro uparamate chittam. In that state, the mind becomes qualified to realize and experience Paramatma. Thus, it realizes the happiness born from that union. Sukham atyantikam yattad buddhi grayam atendriyam. Patanjali Muni's philosophical literature is the only bona fide literature on Ashtanga Yoga. Now, please hear this very attentively. Yeah? What Bhaktivinoda Thakur is stating, it might be a little bewildering and you have to carefully understand. And Prabhupada bases his commentary on again Bhaktivinoda Thakur here. Because the commentators do not understand its factual meaning, they say that according to those who propound Vedanta, the blissful conscious state of the self is actual liberation. The blissful conscious state of the self is actual liberation, they say. This is illogical because if one experiences bliss in the Kaivalya stage of impersonal monism, there is duality, the experience itself and the person experiencing it. There is duality. Therefore, Kaivalya oneness is not possible at all. But these commentators do not understand that Patanjali Muni never stated this. Kaivalya he never stated. But they come to this wrong conclusion. In his concluding verse, he has said, this is the last verse. Purushartha it is. Shunyanam gunanam pratiprasava kaivalyam swarupa pratishtava chit shakti ritya. Yoga Sutras 334. The function of the real self, Chitta Dharma, awakens when one is free from four goals of human life. Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. Purusha Artha Shunyanam. And when the modes of material nature do not cause any worldly disturbance. Gunanam Prati Prasava. This state is called Kaivalyam. In this state, one becomes situated in one's Swarupa. Swarupa Pratishtava. It is called Chitta Shakti. Chitta Shakti it is. 1 second. Let me see. Yeah, it is Chitta Shakti only. If we deeply deliberate on this and it becomes clear, it should be, that Patanjali Muni does not accept that the functions of the self are annihilated in its ultimate state. So this is the the impersonalist monist theory that, the functions of the self are annihilated. No, because, the the illogical understanding is rather he accepts that at that stage there is no transformation or perversion of its actual function takes place. Chit Shakti means spiritual nature. When there are no perverse transformations in the proper functioning of the self, then the true nature of the self awakens. When that state of the self is in contact with material energy, it is called Atma Guna Vikar. So the true nature of the self, when it is in contact with material energy, Atma Guna Vikar, the transformation of the constitutional function of oneself due to the contact with material nature. If these perverse transformations are removed, then bliss, which is an intrinsic characteristic of the Atma, Swarupa, will awaken. This is the opinion of Patanjali. But the commentators don't understand, and they, you know, because they are not coming in the parampara, they misinterpret, and they say that the self is also completely, there is oneness attained, the self is also in one sense, it's merged, they say. But, actually it is not like that. That's what Patanjali is actually saying in this verse. Ananda awakens when one is free from any perversion caused by material modes of nature, and it is blissful in nature. It is the supreme goal of yoga. Later it will be explained that this and nothing else is called bhakti. So later on it will be explained in the middle 6 chapters. Samadhi is of two types, Sampragatma, where one is conscious of the difference between knowledge, the object of knowledge, and the knower. So there are three things: knowledge, object of knowledge, and knower. Hmm? And asampragyata, where this knowledge is absent. So there is no, knowledge, object of knowledge, knower. There is only consciousness. So again, this is very technical. This will come up again in the 13th chapter. But Gyata, Gyeya, and then Gyan. So I'm just drawing here. I don't know whether the space is there. Okay, there is little space here, so I'll draw it here. Please try to understand this concept. It is very important. So there is an individual here. There is an individual here. And he has individual consciousness. He has also individual consciousness. Now, this conscious person is perceiving this conscious person. So there is the subject of consciousness, which is this individual soul. There is the object of consciousness, and there is the stream of consciousness, which is flowing from the subject towards the object. That's why, have you observed sometimes if you start staring at a person, who is not looking at you, but he's looking other side, and you keep on staring, your consciousness is staring him, suddenly he becomes aware and he turns. Have you observed that? Yes or no? Have you observed it or no? It happens. Yes. So according to, what Patanjali is here saying that, the individual consciousness is there, but it's, Atma Guna Vikar, that is completely destroyed. And the natural bliss of the Swarup of the soul is revealed. That's what he's mentioning. But the interpreters, they say that there is no subject, no object, there is only a consciousness, all pervading consciousness, which is Brahman, you know. So there is no individual consciousness. In one sense, this is close to Mayavad philosophy also, in one sense. So Kaivalya, so that is Kaivalya Narakeva, that's what Prabodhan Saraswati says. So that is why there is this knowledge is absent, of subject, object, and knower. But still, you have to understand that even the Patanjali Yoga Sutras are bona fide. but their interpreters, they come to this understanding. But ultimately, here, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur is mentioning, that there is Atma Guna Vikar, but when the Atma is awakened, there is the Ananda, So it's not that there is merging which is happening. So Sampragata Samadhi has many divisions, such as Savitarka and Savichar, So that's what he explains. But Asampragatma Samadhi is of only one type. In the state of Asampragatma, one attains eternal bliss, which is devoid of any contact of the senses with their sense objects through the intelligence, which has become qualified to experience the bliss of the true self. The mind of the yogi does not deviate from this state of realizing eternal bliss within the self. So, kam atyantikam yadya buddhi graham. Without attaining this state, the jiva can never achieve eternal auspiciousness merely by practicing of Ashtanga Yoga. So, if you don't attain the state of samadhi bliss, then there cannot be any auspiciousness for the Ashtanga Yogi. This is because if the yogi is deprived of his blissful state, then the secondary results of his practice in the form of mystic powers and so on attract his mind, and he will deviate from his topmost objective, the blissful state of samadhi. So if he doesn't attain this state and attain this higher then he'll be attracted to the mystic powers. Due to such obstacle, one fears many inauspicious occurrences in the practice of this Ashtanga Yoga, such as degradation and deviation. In Bhakti Yoga, however, there is no such danger. This will be explained later on. In Bhakti Yoga, there is no such danger. That's what, Tirun Thakur is comparing. The yogi does not consider any other bliss superior to the bliss achieved in samadhi. In other words, while maintaining his life, he experiences his temporary happiness through the senses contacting with their sense objects, but he considers this to be completely insignificant. Even at the time of death, while tolerating the extreme pain of an accident or bodily miseries, he enjoys the bliss of samadhi, which is the only object of a search. Being unmoved by all these pains, he still does not give up his supremely blissful state. Gurunapi na vichalet. He understands that these miseries will not stay for long. They will disappear soon enough. So that's what we saw, the realization of Paramatma. Actually, the process now Krishna is going to describe, and then it will lead to realization of Bhagavan, which is from verse 24 to 32. But before we go into that, any questions you have about this section which we discussed up till now? Any questions, any clarifications? Yes, Chakram Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Dhamma Pranam Prabhuji.
Yeah.
What does the object of knowledge means?
It is just, you see, there is always a subject, knower, and he wants to know something. So there is subject and object, like, your what is your profession, Prabhuji?
Hospitality industry.
Hospitality. So you read books on hospitality, right?
Yes.
Because you want to become expert in that field, so you have these books, and what is the object of your studying? Because you have to get a degree on hospitality. So similarly, the soul wants to know the super self, the Paramatma. So the Paramatma becomes the object of knowledge. So there is the knower, the self, and the object of knowledge is meditating on the Paramatma. So that is the object, and
It's fair.
knowledge has to be there, na? There has to be knower, knowledge, and object of knowledge,
Okay.
and also there is a goal of knowledge, what is the goal of knowledge? What is the goal for by you studying hospitality? So that you can earn and maintain your body like that. So like that, that is the object. There is a subject and the object,
Fair
so
enough.
the object can
Understood.
vary based on your purpose. Now, the yogi's object of devotion is the Paramatma. whether it is the gross universal form or the subtle form as Paramatma in the heart, it doesn't matter. Okay?
Ji.
Okay. Any other questions anyone else has? Uh, okay, so I will just, I hope you are able to understand this technical purport. It's very important also we understand it. I'll just take few more verses from this section and conclude today's discussion. संकल्प प्रभवान् कामास् त्यक्त्वान् सर्वान् शेषतः मनसेन्द्रियग्रामं विनियम्य समन्तत शनैर्शनैरुपरमेत् बुद्ध्या धृतिगृह्यतया आत्मसंस्थं मनः कृत्वा न किंचित अपि चिन्तयेत्. So now he is giving the process. Sankalpa Prabhavan Kaman. This is a very, very important term. That one should, take a sankalpa. That there is a in 15.6, I think, in the Bhagavad Gita or 5, Vinivritta Kama, it is mentioned. Vinivritta Kama. Kama means desire or lust. Nivritta means to become free. Vinivrit means complete retirement. Complete retirement from lust. So if we don't take this kind of a sankalpa, we'll be always battling with desires. So one should tektvan sarvan asheshata, everything. Some devotee was giving him an example. Suppose, you enter your house and there are 100 snakes. I'm just giving a figure. And then you call a person who is, expert in snake catching, and he, not 100, some many snakes are there in your home. And you call him and he one by one picks up and, gets all the snakes out. And he said, sir, there were only 100 snakes, so you have to pay me that fees. He said, okay, I'll pay. And then while going, he says, okay, now you can peacefully go and rest. But one snake, I have just left it there only. Will you sleep? So even one material desire, you have, then you'll have to come back in this material world. Prabhupada was very clear from day one in his preaching. Even if you have a desire to see the sunset, then you'll have to come back again in this material world, take another body. So tektvan asheshata, giving up completely what? All sense objects as well as impressions arising from desire. Sankalpa prabhavan kaman. Controlling all the senses completely. Indriya gramam viniyamya samantata. Samantata means completely. All the senses. That means there are all five. How? By the mind. Manasa aiva. By concentrated intelligence. Buddhya dhriti griyata. Having the mind meditate on Atma. Atma samsthanam manakritva. Gradually one should remain in samadhi. Shaner shaner uparamed. Uparamed. One should then not think of anything at all except Atma. Na kinchit api chintayet. So now we have so much chinta about so many things in this world. But to attain perfection, you will have to not think about anything except Krishna. In such practice of yoga, the first and the last actions are mentioned in two verses, 24 and 25. The first and the last. The first action is give up desires, and the last action is not to think of anything at all. Bhaktivinoda Thakur. If there is a delay or any obstacle in achieving the result of her, he does not become frustrated and give up his practice. Anirvinna chetasa. With great endeavor, he continues his yoga practice until he attains result. The first duty one on the path of yoga is follow yama, niyama, asana, pranayam, and so on, and to completely abandon desire that is born from the attraction to attaining mystic siddhi. Sankalpa Prabhavan Kaman, here Bhaktivinoda Thakur mentions, to completely abandon desire that is born for the attraction for attaining siddhi. In addition, with the help of the purified mind, the yogi should control his senses. Indriya Gramam, Niyamata. He should gradually learn renunciation with intelligence acquired from following the limbs of yoga called dharana, concentration of the mind. Then renunciation is called pratyahar, withdrawal of the senses from sense objects. This renunciation is called pratyahar. He should achieve atma samadhi, fixed concentration on the self, by completely controlling his mind through the process of dhyan, dharana, and pratyahar. In the final state, his mind should be devoid of any mundane thoughts, na chintayet, and while wondering how to maintain his body, he should not become attached to it. This is the ultimate duty of the yogi. So now the process Krishna is more explaining. Now, what happens if the mind, because of its flickery nature, you know, becomes unsteady? Now he's giving the answer. Yato yato nischalati manaschanchalamasstiram tatastato niyamayatad atmanyeva vasham ned. Restraining the fickle, unsteady mind. Etad chanchalam astiram mana. So the mind by nature is fickle and it is unsteady. Chanchalam and astiram. Chanchala means, moving, not in one place, Achala, you have to make it achala instead of chanchala. Astiram, it has to become sthira. Mana niyam. And from wherever it maintains, wanders, yato yatanishalti, the yogi should keep it under control. The yogi keeps it under control, makes it obedient to the self. Atman eva vasham vanet. Okay, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur from this. If the mind contacting the mode of passion happens to become unsteady, now why it becomes, unsteady? Because of mode of passion. Due to the appearance of previous attachments, one should again practice yoga. Okay, text 27. There's no purport by Uttam. Prashanta manasam hi enam yoginam sukam uttamam upeti shanta rajasam brahma bhuta akalmasham. So here is Brahma Bhuta is mentioned. Supreme bliss, Sukam Uttamam. Come, Supeti, to that yogi who has specified mind. Prashanta Manasam Hyenam is devoid of passion. Shanta Rajasam, free of sin. Akalmasham, and thus on the level of realization of Brahman. Brahma Bhuta Kalmasham. So Brahma Bhuta. Then, as previously, the yogi again will enjoy the happiness of Samadhi when he does this. Yato Yato Nishalati. Sukham is the subject of the sentence. Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Becoming free from the above mentioned obstacles by his practice, his mind becomes extremely peaceful. Prashanta Manasam. He is situated in Brahma and is Brahma Bhut, free from all material guna. He is free from sin as well as the mode of passion. Such a yogi achieves the previously mentioned supreme, achieves it should be, the previously mentioned supreme happiness. Sukham Uttamam. Okay, text 28. युञ्जन्नेवं सदात्मानं योगी विगतकल्मष सुखेन ब्रह्म संस्पर्शम् अत्यन्तं सुखमश्नुते. सुखेन ब्रह्म संस्पर्शम atyantam sukam ashnute. How many of us have this experience of sukhena brahma samsparsham atyantam sukam ashnute? Raise your hands. How many of us have this experience? No one? Okay, we'll explain you to get some experience. How many of you have anytime got an electric shock? Raise your hand. Anytime you came in contact with a wire and you got a shock, you know? How many of us? Yes, Chakra Rama Prabhuji. Right? Chakra Rama Prabhu, are you
Yes,
there?
Prabhuji. Yes, I'm here.
Yeah. So when you immediately contacted Sparsh, you know,
Yes,
Atyantam Dukam Ashnute, you experienced extreme misery, right?
yes,
Ah. So the same Sukhena Brahma Sarvasham is, in our Harinam Japa. Because the Harinam is directly Brahman. It's spiritual completely. And when you touch the beads, you know, and you chant the mantra which is spiritual and it enters the soul, the soul is bathed in nectar. Atyant Sukham Ashnute. It should happen like that. But that doesn't happen generally because, the mind is wandering all the time. Mind is fickle. That's why we are battling. But that's what should happen when we chant the Harina. Because we are directly Brahma sparsham, Atyantam sukham ashnute. Thus, constantly experiencing Atma, Yunjan eva sadatmanam, the yogi free from all sin, yogi vigata kalmasha, easily attains Sukhena Ashnute, the unlimited bliss, Atyantam Sukham of experiencing Paramatma, Brahma Samsparsham. So he is now, experiencing the Paramatma. So when he, then he attains success. Attaining bliss means he becomes Jivan Mukha, liberated even this life. Bhaktivinoda Thakur. In this way, the yogi who is self-controlled and is situated in the self becomes free from all contamination, and by contact with Brahma, he enjoys extreme bliss. In other words, he attains the supreme happiness of cultivating devotion towards the supreme form, spiritual form of Parabrahma, the supreme blissful, ultimate and absolute truth. That is devotion. So this is also, I told you, devotional Ashtanga Yoga. Now, in two verses, how he realizes, is mentioned. सर्वभूतस्तमात्मानं सर्वभूतानि चात्मनि ईक्षते योगयुक्तात्मा sarvatra samadarshana. Where you had come across this samadarshana term previously? Where you had come across? Anyone knows? Where we had come across this? Anyone? Anyone? Navneet Kalramataji, where you have come across this?
I don't know. Is it 5.8 because he's equally sees Los Loshastrama Kanchana?
Samaloshrashma Kanchana, but Samadarshana, exactly the word. It is 5.18. Vidya Vinay Sampanne Brahmani Gavahastani Sunicheva Swapakecha Pandita Samadarshina. Samadarshana here is, there is Darshina, it is, that's it. So there I had mentioned that, he sees everyone as Atma, and there is, the latent realization of also Paramatma is possible there, because Yogi also meditates on the Gyan Yogi also meditates on the Paramatma I had mentioned. But here in this verse, definitely he is seeing that, okay, let's read the purport and verse. The yogi in perfect samadhi, yogi yuktatma, who sees Paramatma as equal to all, sarvatra samadarshana, realizes, ikshate. Ikshate means he realizes, and it also means that he sees, in fact. The Paramatma is the controller of all living entities. Sarva bhutastam atmanam. Sarva bhutastam, in all living beings, is the Paramatma, and as the resting place of all living entities. Sarva Bhutani Chatmani. All living beings are residing in Paramatma, and the Paramatma is residing in all living beings. So he can see in perfect Samadhi. This shows the Jivan Mukta's direct experience of Brahman. He whose consciousness has taken the form of Brahman, Yoga Yukta Atma, realizes by spiritual perception. Now, this is very important. His spiritual senses are awakened, spiritual eyes. The soul develops its own vision. Ikshate, the Paramatma who resides in all living entities. Sarva Bhutastam Atmanam. And is the resting place of all entities. Atmani Sarva Bhutani. Thus he sees everything as Brahman, Samadarshana. Everything is everywhere Paramatma. You know. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Arjuna is asking, whatever bliss comes from contact with Brahman? Shri Bhagavan anticipates this question and explains briefly that the yogi who has attained samadhi behaves in two ways, according to his bhava mood and according to his activity. His bhava is such that he sees Paramatma in all jivas and all the jivas in Paramatma. His activities reflect such equal vision everywhere. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur is giving more a rasic commentary. So his bhava is that he is seeing that in every living being there is a Paramatma, and that's why he is very careful not to step on them. He's very conscious in their dealings, that reflects his activities. In the next two verses, this bhava is explained, and in the verse after that, those actions are explained. Okay, so we will stop here and continue the discussion tomorrow. Any questions or any clarifications you have up till now? Any questions, any clarifications? No. Okay. So thank you very much. Granthra Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Anant Koti Vaishnav Vrind ki jai. Hare Krishna.